There will not be any 15 months. There will not be any 15 months without period anymore. Hi everybody, so I'm back again and today I'm going to talk about the news that's revolving around the 15 months without period by HDB. So is HDB prices finally stabilizing and will the government be removing the 15 months without period soon? So let's talk about it today. So before we get started, do give me a like and share so that this video can actually reach out to more people. To give you guys a bit of context about what this 15 months without period is all about, okay, so back in September 2022, the HDB was actually monitoring the market very closely and they decided to introduce this measure because at that point of time, the HDB prices was increasing quite quickly. And the driver of the HDB buyers at that point of time were actually coming from private property downgraders. And these private property downgraders back in 2022, they actually, were able to sell off their private property for millions of dollars after they clear off their 3 years selling stamp duty period, and actually they were looking to downgrade into a HDB flat. So it's actually very easy for these private property downgraders at the point of time to actually sell off their private property for a good price, which is millions of dollars, and fully pay for a HDB flat. What kind of problem actually it caused at the point of time was that, people who really need to buy a property, which is the HDB flat for their own stay, end up getting priced out. So that's why the government had to step in to actually cool down the market a little bit, and that's the reason why this measure was actually put in place. And only recently, just a couple of weeks ago, the government actually had some news saying that, there's signs of moderation in the HDB market. And with that being said, I feel that we are probably reaching a point whereby the government have already felt that maybe the HDB prices have already started to stabilize. So today I'll be going through some pointers on, firstly, will HDB prices continue to go up? Secondly, will this mean that it's actually a good time for HDB buyers to enter into the market? And lastly, what does it mean for HDB sellers or homeowners as well as private property downgraders? So how this would actually affect HDB buyers or HDB sellers as well as private downgraders from here on. Alright, so the prices of HDB, okay, if you were to ask me personally, I would feel that the HDB prices will not fall. Okay, in fact, it will still continue to rise, but at a very gradual and very slow growth. Alright, reason being is because with the measure being lifted, there will still be people coming in with good money to buy a HDB flat, right, and pay good price for it. Okay, and at the same time, right, it's also not the government's intention to crash the HDB market, because what they really want is to ensure that HDB continue to remain affordable by keeping the price stable. So secondly, would this be a good time for people who are looking to buy a HDB flat to enter the market? Alright, so personally for me, I feel that if there is a lift of the measure, okay, we have to actually first understand for people who are buying a HDB flat, most of the time they are actually buying for own stay. If you are very particular about the area that you want to purchase, the place that you live in, the size and the facing, etc., right, with the lift of the measure, there will be an influx of buyers that may potentially come into the market as well. So as a buyer today, if I were to buy after the measures is being lifted, right, I will face tougher competition if let's say my area that I'm looking at is very, very specific. Okay, but if let's say today, if you are not too picky about the places and the location that you are looking at in terms of where you want to stay, as long as you can get a decent sized unit at a fair price, right? Personally for me, I feel that you can actually still wait. And in fact, if you want to wait until 2026, it's also okay. Reason being because in 2026, we have roughly about 13,000 MOP units that's going to come into the market, which is compared to the 8,000 that we have in 2025. With that being said, it means that today, if you're not too picky, you have more options in the market and you can go for those that are actually at this 5 years mark. We just hit their MOP and maybe you can get a good deal out of it next year. What does it mean for HDB sellers as well as private property downgraders? Okay, so I'm going to think that there will be two groups of HDB owners, how they will perceive this piece of news. There will be this first group who feel that, okay, if the government were to lift the measure, it means that the government also feel that probably the HDB prices have already reached its peak already and it will not grow too much in the next coming years. So which also means that today, if let's say I don't sell off my property, right, I may potentially be losing out because it may come to a point whereby if I were to sell it next year or the year after, I may sell it either at the same price or even lower. The reason why lower is also because the HDB, they will go through something called lease decay, because as the flat goes older, the value of the property will also start to drop. There will also be another group of HDB owners who feel that with the measures being lifted, right, there will be an influx of buyers that's going to come into the market, which is not wrong because many private property downgraders will feel that, hey, now is the right time for me to enter into the market. They sell their private property, they can come in and buy the 5-room flat as well as the executive apartments, because previously it was actually restricted. This group of homeowners may feel that, hey, maybe I wait out a little bit longer, there will be more people who are coming into the market and may pay a higher price for my HDB house. Personally, I feel there is no right, no wrong for either group of buyers or owners to actually think of it this way. At the end of the day, if you decide to, make a certain move to your HDB property, first thing first, we have to understand everything is very individualized. Everybody who wants to sell their property, they sell it for a different reason. If let's say today you are a HDB owner who's looking to offload a bigger HDB flat, let's say you are currently owning a 5-room flat or executive unit, right? And you're looking to right size to a HDB flat. Personally, I feel that you may want to actually, wait out a little while, okay, just to see how this measure actually affects the market, because you are technically right sizing to a smaller HDB flat. After all, you are still within the HDB market itself. But if let's say today you are a homeowner who are entertaining the thought about upgrading to a private property, personally for me, right, I think what you really need to consider is that if let's say today I continue to hold on to my HDB flat, measure is being lifted, all right, there may be an influx of buyers coming to the market, but will that growth, right, be more significant than you actually making the move right now to go into a private property? Because if let's say today the private property growth is actually more exponential than the HDB growth, if let's say after the measure is being lifted, then would it make more sense for you to actually offload your property right now and look into what are the opportunities are there in the private sector? So last but not least, for private property downgraders, I feel this may be a good news for many, because when that measure was actually being announced back in 2022, a lot of the private property downgraders were stuck because they already offload their private property and they're looking to buy a HDB flat. And because of that measure, right, a lot of them have to force to go and rent for 15 months before they can buy into a HDB flat again. So with this piece of news saying that potentially the government may remove once they feel that it's really moderated, which is really stabilized, I feel it would be good news for private property downgraders, especially for those that are retirees, because they probably want to offload their private estate for a couple of $1 million and rather want to keep more cash on hand. And with that cash, right, maybe they can put it into other form of investment as well and move into a HDB flat. In their retirement age, they don't need the facilities anymore, right? They just want to have a HDB flat that has a good size, in a good location. I think it's good news for private property downgraders. So in conclusion, right, if let's say today you are a HDB buyer, as long as you're not too picky, okay, I feel that maybe you can wait out a little bit longer. But if let's say you're very picky about the place that you want, you should really go and start looking for houses right now, because there will be an influx of buyers potentially coming from the private downgraders. If you're a HDB owner who's looking to explore selling off your HDB flat, it depends again whether are you moving to a private property or you are still keeping within the HDB market. If let's say you are downgrading to a smaller HDB flat, I feel that you can still wait out a little bit longer. But if you're upgrading to a private property, then you should really start to look at your options right now. Lastly, for private downgraders, again, I feel it's good news for all of you. But with all that being said, I think there is so much more to it, okay? I feel it would be better that, let's say today, if any of you actually have thoughts about buying a HDB flat or selling off your HDB flat, let's have a proper discussion and we can go a little bit more in-depth into our discussion and see what are options available for you. Again, if you like this video, do give me a like, share and subscribe, and click on the notification bell so that you'll be notified when there is any more upcoming videos from me. See you guys around. Cheers!